Hi friends, welcome back. My name's Angel. Let's take a little drive today and do some thrifting together. So without further ado, let's start shopping. You know that the first places I always like to go are local Goodwills, and at the first Goodwill that I stopped at, I came across these two clear glass hurricane lanterns that were very reminiscent to me of the ones that are currently on Mcgee & Co.'s website. They weren't identical, but if they had been a matching pair, I probably would have picked them up. Clear glass is very, very trendy right now, and I absolutely love it. Thrifting doesn't mean that you can't find pieces that are very popular. When I picked up this small dish, the scallop detailing on the edges reminded me of a lot of the items that we are seeing with Magnolia and Mcgee & Co. I also loved the deep, rich, kind of mossy brown colors of these two ceramic pots. They definitely gave me Magnolia vibes, and as I watched the footage back, I really wish I would have grabbed those and picked them up. And speaking of finding things, we are always on the lookout for really unique or brand new items. And at this same Goodwill, I came across this what appeared to be brand new Studio Mcgee by Threshold pot, and it still had the tag on the bottom. It was originally $20, but it was $5.99 at this Goodwill, and I think that particular day yellow was the color of the day. While we were out and about, we stumbled across a store called Hot Bins. And what this is a store that purchases Amazon return items, I am guessing by the pallets full. And then they break these boxes down, and it is tons of brand new returned merchandise that has gone back to Amazon. Every day, the bins, or what's in the bins, are priced differently. So this particular day was a Saturday, and everything in all of the bins was $8. So any item that you picked up would have been $8. The boxed items you could take up to a counter, and if you couldn't see the merchandise inside, they would actually open the box and let you view the merchandise to see if it was something that you were actually interested in. We spent quite a bit of time in here. Let me know if you guys have these near your location. This was my first run-in with them. So I grabbed two items that day at the Hot Bins. The first was this twin size mattress topper for my granddaughter's bed, and it is still available on Amazon for $25. As you can see, it is brand new. All of the packaging is still intact, so I thought it was a pretty good deal for just $8. But what I was most excited about, you guys, was this pair of 84-inch in length linen type curtains. They're also still available on Amazon for $47 a pair. It was exactly what I had been looking for a DIY that I've had in the back of my mind. So let's get started on that. For a bit now, I've been wanting to add some custom cafe curtains like we see here from Amber Interiors and Kathy Co. to my breakfast nook area and above my kitchen sink. So while out thrifting, I've been collecting the items. I already had this tension rod for above my kitchen window, but at City Thrift, I picked up these two packages of curtain rings. They were $1.99 a piece, and there were 7 in each package. They weren't the right color, but they were right for the style that I want. Each ring had a small clip at the bottom that will allow me to put the cafe curtain right on those. I was able to find the second tension rod at a Goodwill for $2.99. So I had all of my hardware pieces and was just ready to put them together cohesively with a good spray paint coating. I used semi-gloss black by Rust-Oleum. I gave the curtain rings each 2 coats, and then I went and did the exact same thing to the curtain rods, allowing plenty of time for those to dry. So while those were drying, I went in and started to cut down the curtains. The first thing that I did was fold them in half to ensure that they were perfectly halved and that I had the fabric exactly how I wanted it to measure. So the first panel that I cut was for the longest window in our breakfast nook. I knew that I wanted to cut it quite a bit longer because I wanted to match my hems. So this is the top of the panel where it already had its own curtain rod sleeve and its tabbing on the back side. And that was about a 3-inch hem at the top for those. So I measured my window and then measured out the curtain so that I could allow for that same hem at the bottom. I was trying to mimic on each window the hem, manufactured hem rather, that I was working with so that the curtains would look custom. So after I had measured that twice, I went through and used my rotary cutter for quilting to get a nice straight cut across what is actually the half of this 84-inch length panel, or to the measurement that I wanted. So I cut that all the way through so that I could make sure I cut my 2 longest panels. Now, I did measure both windows before I started this process to ensure that I would have enough of this curtain fabric to do the lengths on the 2 windows that I did in fact want to cover. And I did. I actually had more than enough. So these 2 panels are actually going to make 2 custom cafe curtains. And you can see this is the portion that I have left at the bottom, which is ample amount of fabric to do the window above my kitchen sink. So as I mentioned before, on both pair of these curtains, I was attempting to mimic the existing hem, because what happened was once I cut the longest panel, I had the original tabs and rod pocket at the top. But what that did was on the shorter panel gave me only the original bottom hem. So what I wanted to do was use that original perfectly straight bottom hem as the top of my smaller or shorter panel, and then use my own hem for the bottom of that curtain. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm doing here is double checking and measuring down, marking with a pen exactly where I want that hem that I'm creating for the smaller panel, because I'm working on the smaller panels now, to be. And that worked out to be about 1.5 inch hem is what they had at the bottom. So I measured 3 inches down because I'm going to do a double hem. I am not a seamstress, so double hems for me ensure that I get the straightest hem that I possibly can. And if you're not familiar, I'll explain a little later of what a double hem actually entails. So I pinned that off, folding down the full 3 inches. And then you can see here, I'm just misting it and I'm going through because this fabric is still doubled, and I'm pressing the bottom of where the new hem is going to be. The only reason I'm pressing this is to give myself a guide or a line to follow, because I'm going to open this curtain up and you can see where I've pressed that 3-inch line. I'm going to take that fabric and I'm going to fold half of it up to that line, which is by default approximately 1.5 inches. So I'll go through and I will pin that a little bit just to secure it, and then I'll give it another good iron at the bottom to press it. What this does is ensure that you are in fact getting a true, or as close as you can to, 1.5 inch hem, because you have folded in half from the 3 inches that you started with. So I did that, then I folded it a second time, pinned it, and now I am giving a really good iron to the bottom of this, and I go through and fold it and continue to do that. And what this does is ensure that I have the straightest and cleanest hem on the bottom, and that it is truly close to the 1.5 inches that we have at the top. And even after cutting our 2 panels off, we were still left with 2 nice sized pieces of fabric that we can put on our stash and pull out a little later for some other DIYs. And that simply left us to run a straight stitch. When you guys are thinking about curtains, we have talked before about the vast amount of grommet curtains at the thrift stores. You could do this same process by cutting the tops off of a pair of thrifted grommet curtains. When I see curtains at the thrift store, I look at them as fabric. Plain and simple. Don't overlook inexpensive thrifted curtains for beautiful fabric for recreating pillows, other curtains, table runners. The options are endless. And if you don't sew, remember, hemming tape or a hand stitch can accomplish this same thing. I was thrilled with this fabric because it is so reminiscent of the fabric that Mcgee & Co. has introduced in her spring line. I love that it has this beautiful taupey and brown look to it, and the florals are just stunning. And this is how all of our thrifted items turned into these beautiful custom cafe curtains. I love them. Spring and summer obviously bring blooms to mind, and then I think of vases or vessels to house those, whether they would be real or faux. Mcgee & Co. and Magnolia particularly have brought out these beautiful vessels with soft floral patterns, beautiful colored glass, but some of my favorites have been these rattan baskets. They're just so warm and textured that I love them. So I was thrilled on my thrifting hunt to find this very large, perfectly in shape wicker vessel for $7.99. It did have this ombre painting effect on it, but I knew that with a good coat of linen Rust-Oleum spray paint, we could give her a facelift and really zhuzh her up. So after her paint had dried, I brought her in the house, and you guessed it, I got out our infamous dark antiquing wax and our stippling or wax brush. Keep in mind that changing the color or tone of any item can be done rather easily with stain or antiquing wax. You can tone down an orange or a red. There are a lot of really neat processes to change the tone of items that we thrift, or change the way they look completely, like we are with this particular vase. So I simply went through, covered her really well with the antiquing wax, and went back and made sure that I had some different tone variations by making the wax a little bit darker in some areas and lighter in others. If you guys have been with me long, you know I always have a list of items that I'm searching for, but I would also like to say that I try to keep an open mind and look out for things that might need to be replaced in our home or that are just of superior quality to something I already have. These wine glasses were such an item. I have a couple of wine glasses that have some chips at the top, and then I had a pair that one got broken. So when I came across this set of 4 heavyweight etched glasses for $5.99, I knew that they were something that I couldn't pass up. As I've been browsing online and looking at designer sites, I kept noticing these sculptural bowls or vessels that had small balls on top of them. And when I looked them up at these designer sites, they were quite expensive. And it got me thinking that perhaps we could create a sculptural piece for a whole lot less. I chose to use the base of a terracotta planter saucer for my vessel. And then I got out our air clay that we've used before that I had in my DIY cabinet, and I just started hand molding small balls or spheres. Once I had a number of those made to go around the entire perimeter of the dish, I started to take a knife and cut just a flat portion off of the back exterior. Now I chose to do this just because I wanted to have a little bit more surface area for the lip of the dish and where I would attach that molded sphere or ball together later on. So I did that with each one of the balls, and I ended up actually reducing the amount of spheres because I wanted mine to be spread out a little bit more. I wanted it to look a little bit more natural and organic and not perfectly spaced. Also, all of these balls are not the exact same size. Again, I wanted just that real organic looking shape. Once I had put those outside and let them dry in the sun for about 8 or 9 hours, then I brought them inside and I attached them to the lip of the tray. I used 2 forms of adhesive here. I used the E6000 for longevity, and then I chose to use hot glue so that I could get instant adhesion. So once everything had dried, I took the little vessel outside and gave it a really good coat of the Rust-Oleum linen spray paint again. This is a perfect base coat paint. I use it for a lot. It's kind of a grayish, you can see here, but it's a wonderful neutral that is accented beautifully by wax, stain, a multitude of things. So you can see that I'm using the antiquing wax again and a little bit of water, and I'm just completely covering the exterior of our little sculptural piece, and then using dry paper towels to simply wipe off the excess. This is why you want to add a little bit of water, because we don't want that wax to be terribly thick, and we don't want to waste a lot of it, because we're just allowing it to tint the coloring in the paint that we have added. And I flipped it over and did the exact same thing to the interior, going around really carefully with all of those balls to make sure that it had some darkness around there as well. And to finish our piece off, I gave it a really good coat of the Krylon triple thick glaze, and I think we got pretty close to our inspiration piece. Because I have a lot of wood items in my home and wood furniture, I'm always on the lookout for stone, marble, travertine pieces, things that bring in another element to my home and another type of texture, and just offer a little bit of visual interest and variety in my home. This set of coasters are oval in shape, which caught my attention. They aren't round or square, obviously, and the color variation in them was a little bit different. They had beige and brown, but the camera doesn't really pick it up, but they had a wonderful green tone in them. So when I see these type of things, whether I need another set of coasters or not, I always grab them, because you can use them for coasters, but you can also use them for other things. I've added them as lids to containers. They're always just nice little pieces to pick up. So I removed the old adhesive off the back, got the old glue off, gave them a good cleaning, and then added new felt pads to the bottom. Right now, I'm going to use them as coasters in my home because they add a little bit of interest, but you don't know. You might see them in another DIY later. Sometime back, I had saved these images from Magnolia Market of these beautiful wood carved pedestals. I had also been at an antique store and seen one, but passed it by and didn't pick it up. So it's always kind of been on my want list. The other day, cleaning out my closet, I stumbled across these two ceramic, I think they're plant risers actually. If I remember, I purchased them at Hobby Lobby at the end of their spring and summer collection, and I've used them as risers over the years, but haven't used them recently. And so as I looked at them, they were very reminiscent to those same wood carved pedestals that I've been wanting to pick up and eyeing. And so I thought maybe if we took our wood wax and went over, we could get something that looked similar in nature and resembled wood. So I simply cleaned off these pedestals, and then I went straight back in with the full strength antiquing wax. And as I went through, I tried to wipe it on and then wipe some off. I wanted it to really settle into all of the intricate detail that was around the perimeter of these little plant risers. So you can see I'm really working the wax down in there to try to replicate that carved wood look and the variation in tone that we get from wood. I would wipe off and put back on, and I continued this process until I had the risers covered to what I believed looked somewhat similar to wood. And as you can see, it made a huge difference in the color. The top one almost looks more gray-green, and now we do have this simulated wood color. I was happy with how they turned out. Match cloches or match holders, containers, whatever you'd like to call them, have been out and around for a while, but we're seeing the variation in them change. We've seen jars and glasses, just all kinds of things. So again, I was cleaning out my buffet the other day and I came across these 3 bitters jars that I had stored away. And one of them was tall and ribbed, and I thought this would be a great match container to sit on my bar. So I washed it up and I added the striking tab to the bottom that I already had, that I'd ordered from Etsy probably 2 years ago, and just added in some matches. I thought this was just a really cute way to use an everyday container for something different. A sugar dish or any type of a glass jar or container would be perfect for this. I hope that you found some inspiration and encouragement here today. And once again, we've been inspired to look at what we have and to look at our homes with new eyes. I appreciate you being here with me. And remember, stay on the journey as we continue making our way home. Until next time, bye-bye.